Hello, dear brothers and sisters. In this segment of The Path, we need to talk about you and the law. You know, the law affects every aspect of your life. Who controls your life? How they control it. Sadly, despite the importance and the impact that it has on us, hardly anyone takes any interest in the one subject which affects them in life more than any other single influence. We don't get taught it in school, and when we're out of school, it's the last thing on our minds. Once we get wrapped up in life, we have no time for it, even if we did have an interest, which very few people do. So let's look at the result of this situation. The result is that hardly anyone has even a clue how to stand their ground when challenged legally. The actors in the legal system are so used to doing whatever they like, unchallenged, and they are even protected by their brothers and sisters in the system, they don't even care about the law anymore. And they're running roughshod over everyone, raping, pillaging, stealing from anyone who's unfortunate enough to get put into the meat grinder. Now, for the most part, they win. You lose, and you go home, try to put your life back together again, if that's even possible after the damage has been done. And this is all a result of having been carpet bombed by the system, unexpectedly. You never saw it coming, but it happens. And you know what? It's our own fault. We've allowed this situation to develop, for these things to happen. We've encouraged it by simply turning a blind eye when our friends and neighbors get ramrodded and we go about our own business hoping that we can keep our head down long enough not to be noticed. Do you ever see that? Do you ever feel that way? Go along to get along. Don't rock the boat. Keep your head down. Keep moving. Keep that treadmill turning. Keep paying your taxes. Keep doing what you're supposed to do. Now, you're probably like most people, thinking, oh, I live a clean, peaceful life. Nothing will ever happen to me. You know, I get emails every day from people who thought nothing would ever happen to them. And when it does, it's a crisis. And they come to the law club looking for miracles to replace the attention that they never gave to this important subject. Let me give you a couple examples of people who are thinking just like you are, if this describes you. Okay? Here's a woman talking about her son. It says he was arrested in Washington when he was sitting on a log under a tree, enjoying the view. He had been walking a lot, and he sat down to rest. A man in an officer's uniform walked up to him and asked for identification. He asked the person to identify himself, and they pointed to the name on the uniform. Saw the name Jeff McKee. He asked him if he had a badge. The man told him, they don't have badges anymore. The man refused to give him any further ID and said, the uniform is my ID. My son refused to give him his name, and suddenly 4 more officers surrounded him, knocked him to the ground, laid him on his face in the dirt where they put a chokehold on him. He came very close to blacking out. They then proceeded to drag him over the ground, over rocks and branches. His feet were bleeding badly. They took him to jail, and they tried to book him, but my son refused to give them any information about himself. They cut all of his clothes off, threw him in a cell completely naked, with no water, no food, or any place to even use the bathroom. And they left him there for over 24 hours. He was supposedly trespassing on railroad property, and then was also charged with assault, even though he had no weapon or even a way to fight back against 4 officers. The story goes on and on. She says, I won't bore you with the details, but he was released for 2 days and is now back in jail again. This time he was arrested for standing on a public sidewalk. The sidewalk is on a street in front of the police station. And they called it trespassing again. Later, while he was out, he walked over to the guard shack on the railroad property close to where he was arrested, showed the man in the booth where he was sitting that day, and was told by the person working there that this area is not even railroad property. There would be no problem for him to sit there because it was far from the railroad tracks. The whole situation is ridiculous. My son is not a criminal. He's broken no law, and yet he was treated like a terrorist, held in solitary confinement for 63 days, and is back there now. Does that sound familiar? I've had a lot of stories similar to this. A guy just sitting on a log, minding his own business. And this is how he ends up. You see, we've abdicated our own authority. When the United States of America was created, the people were the authority under God, and the government was to serve the people. However, through our own ignorance and apathy, we have abdicated our own personal authority, and we have allowed the public servants to assume that authority, which we no longer exercise. So the only option available for us, it's logical, it's reasonable, it's sensible, and it's the law, is that we as individuals need to act as the federal courts have said in more than one case, that we are to act as the private attorneys general throughout the country. Yes, you, a private attorney general, enforcing the law, holding our public officials accountable. So long as we know the law, we hold our officials accountable to the law, they understand that they're not going to get away with their shenanigans dealing with ignorant sheep who will just go in whichever direction they're told to go, do whatever they're told to do, and submit mindlessly. We need to reassume that authority. That authority only comes from gaining knowledge. And again, that's what the Lighthouse Law Club is about. This is the whole purpose as to why the Lighthouse Law Club was created. Okay? When you're dealing with demons who are used to getting their way because the people are generally ignorant and don't know how to defend themselves, when a situation starts, you can nip it in the bud quite effectively in the very initial stages if you know how to handle the situation. But when people are ignorant, they don't even know where to draw the line. That line is blurred and then crossed, and the people that are being victimized by the system don't know what to do, and they let the authorities get away with whatever they're trying to do. All right? Now, that's not to say that having knowledge is going to stop anybody. But what it can do is it can create the situation where the crimes they are committing are knowledgeable, willful, and voluntary. That sets them up for damages, and in the worst case scenario, if they run roughshod over you, you will have set a good case to come back later, counterattack, put them on the defensive, and at least recover some damages for the chaos that they have caused. All right? So, we have cases, traffic stops. Just this happens to everybody. What do you do to handle yourself in a traffic stop? There's all kinds of horror stories that arise out of people letting the cops do whatever they're asked to do, that they don't have a right to do, that you need to say, no, I will not step out of the car unless you are putting me under arrest. No, you cannot search the car unless you've got probable cause, reasonable articulable suspicion, or a single articulable fact. These are very simple things to deal with right off the bat that puts the officers on notice that you know what you're doing. And they immediately start treating you differently because they know they're dealing with someone knowledgeable and who will and can hold them accountable. So this is why the Law Club was created. It's not a huge cram course. It's not a 6-year college education that requires 4 hours every day, plus study and homework. This is something you need to be learning little by little. It's kind of like, if you share my values and belief system and like to read the Word of Jesus once in a while, you should be reading that Word a little bit every day. You should also be reading Man's Law a little bit every day. And you know how fast time goes by. Before you know it, a month goes by, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. And if you're doing a little bit every day, all of a sudden, you're starting to put up a nice little storehouse of knowledge and empowerment. And that's the whole approach that we suggest in the Lighthouse Law Club. A little bit here, a little bit there. Start building on your knowledge. Pick away at it 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. And we've even tried to make it as easy as possible with our payment plan. We now have a payment plan. You can divide up the memberships into 5 easy payments, spread it out over several months so that, the financial aspect of it isn't going to be a burden or a detriment or an obstacle for you to get started. So it comes down to, what's it worth to you? What's your life worth? What is knowledge worth? What is having a defense against tyranny when it comes upon you? What's that worth to you? I don't need to rehash what it could cost you, what it's costing people every day for being ignorant. I guess that's what you have to evaluate in your own life. Okay, are you willing to roll the dice, take your chances, hope you never get caught up in the net? Well, you may not. You might be one of the lucky ones. But then again, if not, what's it going to cost you? Compare that cost to the cost of acquiring a little bit of knowledge, associating with like-minded members who are involved and engaged in learning and doing things to set up the barriers and walls around their own personal, private fortresses, their home, their business, their lives. These are the things you need to evaluate for yourself. So with that, I hope I've been able to help put things into perspective, give you some pause for some thought, and really think about what is the value of having knowledge to defend yourself in view of the circumstances that we find ourselves in this absolutely crazy, chaotic, predatory world that we live in. So, I won't bloviate any further. Some food for thought. Take care. See you in the next video. Until then, God bless.